The Gophers take their first loss on the season. A lot went wrong. How do we move forward from here? We're talking about that today.
Hey,
You are Locked On Golden Gophers.
No matter what we're going to do here, we're just going to keep rowing.
Your daily podcast on the Minnesota Golden Gophers.
However it turns out, we're just going to keep rowing.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
We're just going to keep rowing, and keep rowing.
You're listening to Locked On Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Kane Rob, host of the podcast, former collegiate football video coordinator and recruiting assistant, here to talk Golden Gophers with you each and every day of the week, Monday through Friday. And the Gophers are coming off their first loss of the season against a ranked opponent, the first road game, and it wasn't pretty, folks. It was rough. The Gophers kept shooting themselves in the foot, and we're going to break it down. We're going to talk about what all went wrong, what were maybe some of the positives in there, and then we're going to talk about the immediate fixes necessary and how it changes the outlook of the season, if at all. We're talking about all of that today on Locked On Golden Gophers, so be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss any of this content moving forward. And then as we get ready for Northwestern week, which is next on the docket. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed at FanDuel.com/LockedOn. So let's talk about this North Carolina game, because you know what? It was frustrating. It was disheartening. It was just mad, okay? And North Carolina is a really good team. I'm not going to take that away from them. We took away the running game really well. They were a top 10 team in the nation when it came to running the football. We took that running game away, and you love to see it. But then Drake Maye just picked us apart. And it wasn't like anything flashy or crazy. Now, that first touchdown pass that he dropped into a bucket where you were hoping Gooseby could really just maybe have his arm just a little bit further to be able to hit the ball or deflect the ball or disrupt the catch or some sort. It didn't work, but you know what? You take that with a talented quarterback. So it was a tough one. It was a very big play on a 3rd and 12, which was kind of just deflating right away from the jump. But the Gophers defense found a way to get back in this thing. But overall, this was a really good North Carolina team, really good North Carolina program, and a really good quarterback that sliced and diced on us. Now, we didn't get off the field on 3rd and longs. That was a major problem in this game. One of the keys was putting yourselves in advantageous positions on defense, making sure it's harder for them on the early downs. And the Gophers tended to do that. They would keep them in 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12, a couple 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6s in there and whatnot. But the problem was they never really got off the field after those 3rd downs. Drake Maye found extra time, was moving in the pocket, and then was able to pick up a pass here, pick up a pass there, hit an explosive play here, there, on 3rd downs. And if you do that against a really good quarterback, it's going to be tough to win the game. And we saw that firsthand. Now, again, credit to this North Carolina team. If you don't bring your best against a team like that, you will not win the game. Plain and simple. And we talked about we needed our best. Now, I threw it in at the prediction show with Tristyn, and I said, if they can't get off the field, this game could get ugly. Now, the Gophers kept it close in those middle quarters and really tried to fight and scrap their way back into this thing through all of the miscommunications, all of the self-inflicted wounds. But again, you can't have all of that and then expect to beat a team like North Carolina. And they proved they're a deservedly ranked team. They're really talented, and their quarterback is a real deal, putting up 400 yards on us, 101 of those yards coming in the first half on 2 huge plays that turned into their first 14 points. But alas, let's talk about what we learned from this game. Now, we've got classic Minnesota fans and their Minnesota sports trauma saying this team is bad, the quarterback's awful, we don't have a quarterback, blah, blah, blah. It's not May Day, folks. It's not abandon ship. And to the fans that are doing that, let them have it. Let them hop off the wagon. It's cool, because there are takeaways that are both good and bad from this game. Now, there are definitely needs to be some major improvements. And let's start there. Let's start with where it went wrong. Now, like I said, UNC had a lot of third downs and third and longs, but we couldn't get off the field defensively. Now, the defense started to come together, especially in the late second, most of the third. They were really giving us a chance in this one, even through the ugly. But we gave up a 46-yard touchdown on a 3rd and 12 and drive number 1. Those type of mistakes hurt you. Then the play calling. The play calling is too damn predictable. I mean, the offense had some creativity elements here and there on the long balls, but there were missed throws, and Ethan has to hit those throws. He's got to dial it in. He's got to hit the layups, and those are layups when you have your receiver drifting and he has the open field to this side. You got to hit him. It's plain and simple, and he knows that. He will tell you that, but we can't know it and tell you that now. Now we got to capitalize. We got to make it happen in these big games, in your UNCs, in your Iowa games coming up, in your Ohio State games, Wisconsin games. Even when we play Purdue, you're going to have to hit those shots for the Gophers to come out with victories. But you talk about missed throws, you talk about drop balls, you talk about players falling in their routes that lead to almost near interceptions, and all of that led to an offense that continued to stall. But that said, why, for the love of all things that are holy, are we not using Tristyn Spann-Ford in the red zone? Look, I get that he's dropped some balls. I get that he's tipped some balls in the air that have turned into interceptions, and he absolutely has to fix that. He has to cut down on that. He has to find ways to keep the ball out of harm's way and to secure those catches. But at the same time, why are we putting him in disadvantaged positions? Why are we having him run hooks and curls where he has to catch the ball knowing traffic is coming in and either embrace for him impact, or if he gets the ball, he has no way of really turning up the field to make a play? Why are we playing with him in that way? Why aren't we having him run on drags across the short part of the field to catch it and continue running up and power through people? Why aren't we having him run seams up the middle where a linebacker isn't going to be able to catch up with him, where you can throw it up in the air and he'll have the advantage to jump up over someone and get it? Why aren't we playing with him in the red zone with a one-on-one fade ball where he has the entire left open side of the field side, to be able to work and have that connection in a one-on-one battle with a cornerback? I don't get it. That is the part that is infuriating to me, is we have the talent. We have route running in Daniel Jackson. We have intermediate players in Chris Hotman-Bell and Elijah Spencer. And yes, they have to clean up the drops, and Ethan has to get the ball there. But the play calling is very predictable right now. And if you're predictable, you know the other team watches tape, right? You know the other team knows your tendencies, knows what you try to do. And yes, that might open up some plays, but you still have to be able to hit and move players in different ways than what you have put on film over and over and over. Because if I'm a defense right now, I'm like, look, Tristyn Spann-Ford's going to run a curl. Two guys need to come in, bring as much speed, as much aggressiveness, as much power as you can to hit him, and maybe that ball pops up. And always be eyes on a swivel, because this team likes to bat the ball in the air. These are notes I would take from the first two games we saw, and now they're notes from the third game. We have to clean it up. We have to change it up. We have to have creativity. And we talked about that the entire week, and then you saw maybe blips of creativity that still weren't capitalized. We've got to have opponents fearing our best players, as opposed to, you know what, we can stop that. That's fine. Because if you use Tristyn Spann-Ford in advantageous positions, if you use him on a drag route across and he gets it and he can run up the field, you do that 2 or 3 times and they're like, okay, we got to take that away. Bring another defender over this way. You know what? That opens up the backside. Then you have Daniel Jackson or Lemeki Brockington over the backside that can take that deeper shot. It opens up other things if you get creative with how he can move the ball. Now, one thing I hoped in the offseason was that the Gophers would look like they would look outside of the program at the offensive coordinator when Shiraka left, because the offense needed some modern elements. Now, sure, there has been some change here and there, but this play calling is still very predictable, and even with the more balance, even with the, okay, we've passed more, we've run more, we've passed more, 30-30 split, whatever. No, it's still predictable, and that is where the problem lies. Now, we absolutely did not keep UNC's offense off the field, 11 drives, but 5 of our 11 drives were 5 plays or less. And we talked about how that would be an issue if the Gophers couldn't extend their drives. Now, another one of their drives was a 6-play punt. So that's really, you could almost chalk that up into the 5 plays or less. So 6 drives were ineffective. Now, the other drives outside of that, a 7-play field goal score, 7-play touchdown score, 9-play field goal score, and then a 7-play interception and a 9-play interception. You have to turn those turnovers into touchdowns, and you're talking about you're right in this game. So the Gophers have to clean so many things up on the offense. It's ridiculous. The defense has been bailing them out, and they have the talent to do it, but it's got to happen now. Both of the interceptions were massive killers on the verge of entering the red zone. Athens was tipped by his tight end, again, batted in the air, threw a pass which was behind him, and then Kramer's interception was just absolutely terrible. Post route running to the right, and somehow the ball ends up way on the left where only the 2 defenders are. You can't make those simple mistakes. And then, like I said, you talk about drops, and more drops. But the most unexpected was the miscommunications early in the defense with busted plays and coverages that were messed up from substitutions that turned into 2 detrimental touchdowns against Minnesota. Now, all of that being said, the scoreboard is not indicative of the actual difference between these 2 teams. Even North Carolina fans can respect that this defense looked very good. And besides a broken play here and there, they had the Gophers in this thing. But it's just the mishaps on those couple of plays on defense and the many errors on offense spread all over the offense in combination is not a winning formula against a very good, talented team. When we're playing their best ball, this is a winnable game. When Minnesota is clicking, this is a winnable game. But Minnesota was nowhere near their best ball, and that is what is frustrating. Now, there's learnings, and there's growings, and there's adjustings to do. But many Gophers fans I saw are acting like the sky is falling, and it's not. If we learned anything in the middle chunk of this game, it's that the Gophers can hang, especially defensively. But cleaning up the miscues and finding an offensive identity is pertinent for this Gophers team to be able to have success in some of these later games in the season. It's going to be the difference in getting 7 to 8 wins or getting barely into a bowl game. That's going to be the difference. You've got 2 games on the schedule that you should absolutely not overlook coming up, but they're also 2 games where you need to work out the kinks. You need to get Ethan in rhythm. You need to get him confidence. And all the Gophers fans that are bashing this kid because he struggled in this game, move on. Because he is a young quarterback that still has to work out the kinks, but we've seen what the talent level is. He looked good in the first game. He looked good in the second game besides a batted up tipped interception. This third game was rough. It was on the road in a hostile environment, and he missed the layups. He's got to hit the layups, but he still has so much potential to be a great quarterback. So he needs to put it together. Now, the positives is the O-line held it down. Darius Taylor is a baller, the truth, and absolutely the lead back. The kid is special. This wasn't a conference loss. That is huge for this Gophers team, and it is still early. So minus shooting yourself in the foot, you saw you can be in the ball game with a ranked, high-powered squad. This team has the ability to compete with very good teams, and you're going to have to. So you got to clean up the errors right now. Now, the one thing that I want to lastly wrap up with is bad, unusual penalties for the Gophers took place in this game. That has to be cleaned up because that has always been an advantage for the Gophers, and you cannot lose that now heading into Big Ten play. Now, we're going to talk about the 3 main things that have to be fixed immediately heading into these next games, and that is what's going to come up next. But first, I got to talk to you about our friends over at BetterHelp. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Whether you're dealing with decisions around your career, relationships, or anything else, therapy helps you stay connected to what you really want while you navigate life now, so you can move forward with confidence and excitement for what is to come. I personally have been through therapy, and though I was hesitant at first, I was like, I don't want to talk to some random person about my problems. I don't want to talk about the things that bug me or the things that I just don't feel comfortable with. I didn't want to go there. But after the first few sessions, I was asking myself, why did I not do this earlier? It's like a weight that's lifted off my chest. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. You can get a break from your thoughts with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnCollege today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnCollege. All right, Gophers fans. So let's talk about the 3 things that need to be fixed immediately heading into this Northwestern week. And this is a week that is great for that. It's great to be able to try to put some things together, try to get some rhythm going, try to get an identity. That is number 1. You have to absolutely find an offensive identity because we haven't been able to create. Are we more of a running team? Are we more of a passing team? Are there ways that we can complement the two? We've seen a complementary offense with 2019 with Tyler Johnson, Rashad Bateman, Rodney Smith, all working in tandem and having it complement each other, but it's just not there right now. And is that offensive play calling and choices and how we stack things and how we play off of things? Or is that not capitalizing on the opportunities that are there? Do we want to lean more into the run game again? How do we get our quarterback into a rhythm? How do we get our playmakers the ball? Like I said, Tristyn Spann-Ford, Chris Ottman-Bell as he continues to work back, Daniel Jackson. How do you get them the ball so they can create? How do we add more running back screens? How do we add more tunnel screens for our quick players? How do we get Daniel Jackson the opportunity to create separation with his great route running? How do you create an offense where you make them pick their poison as opposed to, you know what, someone's open, I'll force it this way, or I'll look this way. We have to create more fluid looks that are advantageous because we have too many talented players on this team to not have an opening in the offense, especially when passing the ball. You have too many talented pass catchers. Lemecki Brockington, Chris Ottman-Bell, Daniel Jackson, Tristyn Spann-Ford, Corey Crooms. It's too many. It's too many. And then you've got Darius Taylor on the ground. You have to find ways to complement and keep the ball moving, keep the game flowing, and keep confidence building. That is number 1 priority of this week, is finding an offensive identity. And this is the team to do it against in Northwestern that has been struggling against Duke, struggling against, I can't remember who their first opponent, Rutgers. Rutgers picked them apart too. They weren't really in that game. Now they got a huge win against UTEP, but again, that's UTEP. So you have to come into this game. You have to dominate. You have to put it together, but you have to find an offensive identity that you can take these next 2 weeks, show consistency, show ways to get the team gelling in confidence, and then move forward with 2 more wins, 4 wins heading into a Michigan game. That's what has to happen coming up. And then the number two thing we need with that offensive identity is finding a rhythm for your quarterback. Now, Ethan has to stop gunning the ball everywhere. He's got a strong arm. We know it. We've seen it. He can put some zip on the ball, but he's got to be able to tone it back and put it in the right spot. Placement is going to be huge. Letting it hit the wide receiver's hands soft is going to be huge. And that comes in practice. That comes in reworking things and taking a little bit off, putting more touch on the ball, more loft on the ball. I think about Madden. Now, I know Madden is a completely different thing than real football. It is not just like, oh, this is that easy. But you've got different passes that you can choose from in Madden. You've got the bullet pass. You've got the lob pass. You've got the high pass, the low pass. There's all sorts of different ways you can place it. Now, that is easier said than done, but at the same time, that gives you an example of what Ethan still has to add to his game, the elements that he can still bring where he has more touch on a pass. The touch pass is another one there, but where you have these different elements of how you can make it easier for your wide receiver to put them in better positions. And he just saw a great quarterback do it across the field in Drake Maye. And there's things to learn from that game. And I know he'll hit the film. I know he'll do it. And hopefully, as we continue to develop, these next couple games are the perfect places to try it out and get used to it and build it into your routine and your skill set. So that's going to be huge, is number 2 of developing a rhythm with your quarterback. But number 3, is we have to fix the personnel packages on some of these things. Why is Sean Tyler coming in on a 3rd and 2 in short when Darius Taylor's been balling all game and they can't really stop him in the running game? But we send in Sean Tyler, who's much smaller, not really your power back on a 3rd and 2. That tells me on the defense, oh, they're probably not going to run the ball here. They might do something creative, but he's not really pass blocking plus back, and he's not really a ground and pound like 2-yard scrappy type back. He's a back that works in speed and east to west. So I respect him and the skill set and the strengths that he brings, but pass blocking and short yardage, tough, scrappy north-south running is not his thing. So when I see him on 3rd and 2, I'm like, okay, that's either telling me they're probably going to try to do some creative pass here, or it's probably not going to be a run. That's what it's telling me. And we saw 2 or 3 drives where that happened. It got snuffed out each time, and the Gophers ended up having to punt or take a field goal or what have you. We have to clean up personnel packages. We have to be more creative. It's just there's so many things on this offense that need to be fixed. Now, the plus side of this all is that a lot of the players we are playing are young. A lot of the players that we're playing have multiple years left. But that doesn't fix the now. That doesn't fix the winning now, being in competitive matches now against good teams. And in order to do that, we have to fix it and correct it today, this week, starting with Northwestern. So those are the 3 things that need to be fixed immediately heading into this next week. And then we're going to close the show off with upcoming opponents and the season outlook. Has it changed at all after this North Carolina loss? We're talking about that coming up next. First, I want to talk to you about our friends over at Athletic Brewing Company because they bring you your game changer of the week. Now, it would be easy to say Darius Taylor is the game changer of the week as he proved once again against Power 5 opponent that he can absolutely run all over him. But my game changer for the week is Jack Henderson. Jack Henderson is someone who kept the Gophers in this thing on defense, and Athletic Brewing has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game, just like Jack Henderson helped change that game for the Gophers. They make non-alcoholic beers that actually taste good. Now, Jack Henderson was our player and our game changer of the week because he was all over the field on defense, making huge tackles, had an absolutely critical interception when the Gophers were down 14-3 to get there, or 14-0 to get them back into this game and have an interception to flip the field and finally get the Gophers on the board with 3 points. Unfortunately, it didn't turn into a touchdown, but Jack Henderson willed his way into this game, giving the North Carolina quarterback Drake Maye some problems at times. Now, Athletic Brews is the real deal. Their brews are great tasting, award-winning, and have beat out full-strength beers in global competitions. On top of that, they have 50 styles of craft non-alcoholic beer, including IPAs, Goldens, sours, and more. And best of all, no hangovers. So you can find Athletic Brewing Co's non-athletic brews at a store near you or buy online at athleticbrewing.com. First-time customers can use promo code LOCKEDON to get 15% off your first online order. Again, that's LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, at checkout for 15% off at athleticbrewing.com. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times. An Athletic Brewing Company and athleticbrewing.com, and near beer exclusions and conditions apply. All right, Gophers fans, we're wrapping this one up with the next 3 opponents and what is the season outlook after this loss at North Carolina. Now, Northwestern is next on the schedule, and this is a game that you have to go in, you have to win. It's another road game. You cannot drop this game. Cannot, because it has Big Ten implications. It has confidence implications. You have to go in, you have to set the tone, and you have to win big against a team that has lost by 17 to Rutgers, lost by 24 to Duke, and then they beat UTEP. You have to go in and you have to get the offense clicking against a Big Ten opponent and go 2-0 in the Big Ten schedule, which would be a huge start, especially because that's the Big Ten West. Having 2-0 in that is going to be a big-time game, so you can't drop that one. After that, you have Louisiana. No, Louisiana has had some big wins. They had a win against an FCS opponent 38-13, and then they beat UAB 41-21, but they also lost to Old Dominion 38-31, so this is a team that the Gophers should win handily once again, and you have to use the momentum. build an offensive identity, use that momentum in Northwestern game to get a dub, move it on to even dominate further against Louisiana, and then you head into Michigan with another barometer check, another test on the schedule that is going to be the hardest game of the entire season. Now, Michigan has shown that they are a top team in the country, top 2 team in the country right now, and it is not even close. If Minnesota plays in that game like they just did against North Carolina, they're going to lose the game by 50 points. I'm going to keep it a buck with you. That's how good this Michigan team is. So if you don't find a way to put things together, especially in the passing game, in these next 2 matchups, Minnesota could be in for some long games in the Big Ten moving forward. Now, all of that said, Northwestern, winnable. Louisiana, winnable. Michigan State, winnable. Illinois, winnable. Purdue, winnable. Wisconsin, winnable. They haven't done anything from what we've seen so far that tells you, oh, they can't beat that team. That's 6 winnable games still on this schedule with 2 wins already. You can still have an 8-win season. That is still absolutely a possibility, but you have to clean up the self-inflicted wounds. You have to make sure you're not getting penalties, and you have to find an offensive identity. This defense can keep you in all of those games by itself, playing the way it plays. But the offense has to put it together to turn those games into actual wins. Now, right now, I'm not giving Minnesota a shot against Michigan or Ohio State at all until they can prove it offensively and plain and simple, make it happen, show some spark, show some encouragement, show some life. And until I see that, I can't give them a chance in those 2 games. And that leaves Iowa. That leaves you the Iowa game. Now, Iowa is going to feel a lot like this North Carolina matchup. The caliber of team is like North Carolina. Maybe Wisconsin could creep into that territory too, but regardless, if you can't pull it together fast this year, it'll end up mediocre. It'll end up what has been claimed to be opportunistic. It'll end up with 6 wins in a bowl game and a struggle in those 3 straight 9+ win seasons that we've been touting and moving and pushing. That's gone. So we have to clean it up. Now is the time and the opportunity to really prove that this team can adjust, young or not, that it can make things happen. Now, I'm going to end today's show with 2 things. The first is that they have to go out there and prove it. They have the opportunity to win, and they can prove a lot of Minnesota fans wrong with the all or nothing attitude that is what Minnesota sports fans do. But what I really want to end today's show with is a quote that I have saved on my phone that I think it's applicable to life, but also to this situation, and I hope y'all appreciate it. So this is how we'll close it off. The quote is, "You can't change the past, and you can't predict the future, but you can ruin the present by worrying about both." So with that, we're turning the page to Northwestern and looking for the improvements, especially on the offense. Row the boat, Sky, you might go Gophers, and as always, don't forget to subscribe.